Good Friday evening. I'm 10 Tampa Bay meteorologist Natalie Ferrari, jumping on Facebook Live with you guys first for a little bit to update you on some of the changes that we've been seeing in the tropics with our 8 o'clock update and some of the changes that we're expecting to see in the tropics closer to 11 o'clock tonight. I'm going to give some folks a bit of time to log on with me, and at the same time, I am pulling up some of the comments. So if you guys have any questions, or if I don't get to answer a question here pretty quickly, at least I can see them and I can always respond to you guys. So it sounds like the video and the audio are working seamlessly. Good evening, everyone. Chris, so you're saying there's a really, really good chance. We actually, some of us had already made that joke earlier in the week because the models were just so well spread out across the Eastern Gulf as far as where this potential tropical cyclone at the time would actually end up. And now that the cone has been released, and there is a forecast cone with these systems, this system in particular, Tropical Depression 9, it's slowly becoming less funny and very, very much so on the more real side as far as what we're tracking. So the potential definitely increasing, growing as far as us here in Florida, just really needing to make sure we're prepared, we're staying informed as far as the latest, that we're not worried. There's no reason to panic or freak out, but it's truly just something that we have to be ready to deal with, depending where this system ends up falling in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and ultimately possibly near the west coast of Florida. So lots of question marks that we're going to be getting to here pretty slowly. I'm getting a lot of you guys joining on now, so let's go ahead and get started. As of 11 o'clock tonight, we are still looking at Tropical Depression 9. I will tell you, either late tonight or early tomorrow morning, this is likely going to see winds pushing near 40 miles per hour, and that will officially get it to a tropical storm status. In case you missed it, the next name on the list is actually now Ian. You guys probably heard over the past couple of days us mentioning that Hermine was going to be the next name, and that was the case until this happened. Right around this morning, we had another depression that actually formed in the far, far eastern Atlantic, just off the west coast of Africa. This was Tropical Depression 10, formed shortly around the same time Tropical Depression 9 did, even a little after that. And this ended up getting to tropical storm status first. So that took Hermine. Tropical Depression 9, the next name on the list will actually be Ian. So that is the disturbance right now in the Caribbean that is forecast to make its way into the Gulf, and that will be the next name that we're talking about here. But let's get into the details of Tropical Depression 9. It is moving to the west-northwest about 15 miles per hour. This area right now is so warm. It is dealing with still a bit of wind shear, and when we talk about wind shear, we're basically talking about what the wind is doing high up in the atmosphere. As that storm grows, it gets stronger, and once you're talking about very, very strong winds kind of staying aloft where this tropical development is trying to form, it is just not conducive for tropical development. Tropical systems don't like it, and they also really want warm conditions to be around as well. So there's just been so much shear that has just been hanging around this region. This gives you a better view of what Tropical Depression 9 has been battling. I mean, really over the last two and a half days, especially when the depression, or rather, it was just disorganized area of thunderstorm activity at the time. When it was right around here, it was passing through the Windward Islands, meandering through northern portions of Venezuela. It was battling a good amount of that deep blue you see here, which is some really strong tropical wind shear. But look what's happening tonight. As this system not only continues to drift a little bit more to the west-northwest, it's getting out of that window, it's getting out of that environment that is just a little too hostile. It's actually getting into an area that it's going to be more conducive, and it's going to like more for some strengthening and some further development. So that is why the Hurricane Center has been running model after model, looking at forecast after forecast over the last couple of days. And now that we actually have a center, an area of low pressure that has formed, and we have a center that models can really grab onto, put data into, and get a better idea of which direction it's going. Now that we at least have that, it is a pretty safe bet. This is going to continue to drift west through the Central Caribbean and then do a little bit of a steer, a little bit of a turn to the northwest. And this area right around here is very, very warm right now, and it's very, very warm this time of year. So there is some potential talk within even the National Weather Service, within some of their latest updates. We've got to really monitor on how things could possibly rapidly intensify. because you're talking about a system that by Sunday evening could be dealing with 60-mile-per-hour winds, which is still a tropical storm, firing up to 90 miles per hour within a 24-hour window. So that's quite a bit of a jump. And then that strengthening would even continue after it crosses over a little sliver of western Cuba, moving pretty quickly into the eastern, southeastern Gulf, and then drifting up towards what's potentially looking to aim now towards Florida. This is where, let me get you a little closer, this is where our uncertainty grows. We have a pretty decent idea through the Caribbean that this track is going to hold on to the west-northwest, at least through the weekend. The uncertainty really starts to grow once this storm actually makes the turn. It starts to turn a little bit more so towards Cuba. Is it going to go a little bit more to the western tip? Is it going to go more so to west central to Cuba? Because that is going to make a huge difference as far as how it steers and how it turns up here towards Florida. So when we show you this cone every single night, one thing that we really want to stress is do not focus along the middle of that cone. You see how it widens by day 5? And that just basically gives us that uncertainty. It basically, all of the years past, the National Hurricane Center has put out these cones. It accounts for basically a margin of error that, it sometimes the storm ends up being a little bit more so towards this side. And by day 5, they can see it kind of tilt a little bit more to the right this way. It kind of just basically gives it more so of a margin of error. It does not necessarily mean this eye is going to stay down the straight on middle of this track. But there is a really good certainty that it will stay within that line. So that is what we have to be watching out for and keeping a very close eye on. And that's why you're going to still hear us say, Florida, it looks like, we really got to keep an eye out here, but we're talking about any changes in steering a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, any difference by even just 20, 25 miles, you're talking about a drastic difference of impacts of hurricane force winds, and then eventually even those outer impacts of those squall lines from county to county. It really does paint a different picture for everyone involved. So bottom line, these are the main takeaways that we're really trying to drive home. This tropical depression is going to strengthen, and we're going to actually see, I think we're going to see some of that within the new update, the next update that comes in at 11 o'clock tonight from the National Hurricane Center. And when that does, our broadcast on there actually starts at 11, so I'll be bringing you the latest updates on there. We'll take it online, but as well as on TV. That is likely going to become Ian, either late tonight or possibly overnight into tomorrow morning. With that being said, there are going to be quite a few changes, not only in the forecast, but in this track that you're seeing right here, as well as how this storm evolves. There's going to be changes as we go along, and then of course our accuracy really hones in the closer we get to an actual event, which is forecast to be close to a Tuesday, Wednesday time frame next week. So I know we're going into the weekend, we're wanting to mentally shut down, but I definitely recommend just making sure you have a way to kind of check your updates, check the updates that are happening in the tropics. So I'd say maybe once in the morning when you wake up, and once in the either afternoon or evening before bed, just to keep yourself informed. We have a 24-hour streaming service that's going on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. We have our website, and of course we have broadcasts on air that we're going to be helping guide you all along the way. We have a team of 5 meteorologists that are going to be here all weekend, round the clock, giving you the latest. And I think that's very important to say, just because with us having a good idea of what this storm will do over the next couple of days, that's going to give us a better picture of what's going to happen as we go into early next week, which is when things are going to really start to look interesting closer to the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. So that's the main part that is still a big question mark as far as where is this thing going to end up when it comes to a impact in anywhere across the United States or even Florida at this point, what it's looking like. Strengthening hurricane will likely exit the Caribbean. So as mentioned, I was telling you earlier, in case you're just joining us, this is the region that's so warm right now. So this, especially near Grand Cayman, just west of Jamaica, this is going to be a region that we're really going to have to be watching and seeing how this storm could intensify, because the environment is just so prime, it's so conducive for a tropical storm to quickly bump not only into a Cat 1, but then eventually a Cat 2 hurricane, possibly making an impact in Florida as a Cat 3 storm. Cat 3 storm is 15 mile per hour sustained wind speeds is what our forecast is going with. I want to talk a little bit more about timing, because I know that's a big question as well. In case you've been tuning in earlier in the week, we were originally thinking this was going to be a mid to late week thing that we would be dealing with next week. I think the timing is speeding up, and this has a lot to do with where this system formed in the Caribbean, as well as how that turn takes. Because at first we were kind of thinking, oh, maybe it would go closer to the Yucatan and then the central eastern Gulf. That would take more time. This is going to happen a little bit quicker through the northwestern Caribbean and even towards western Cuba. So when it comes to Florida, southwest Florida's earliest impact, most likely arrival that see tropical storm force winds entering the region, it's likely going to be by 2 o'clock, or rather Tuesday morning, by 8 o'clock in the morning. Then you start getting to Manatee and Sarasota counties right along the coast. I think near the bay, it could be as early as about sunset on Tuesday. So we're really saying, make sure you have all your preparations done as far as getting your supplies, making sure you have everything you need around your home done as early as Tuesday evening. And you can see that even for the Tampa Bay, the probability we'd be seeing those tropical storm force winds, which are winds in excess of 40 to 50 miles per hour, it's about a 37% chance right now. So this will change, especially as we get closer to the time window, especially as we get a better idea of where the center of this storm will go, the core of the storm, because that is still an unknown at this point. But it's really honing in on a decent potential, at least for some strong winds approaching southwest Florida as we get into that late Monday, really through midday and evening hours of Tuesday time frame. And then some of those rain bands, again, that would still linger even past into the middle of the week. So I just showed you that. I wanted to show you one of the models. Kind of keep your focus, let me show you, got that little pointer here. Keep your focus in the Caribbean here and notice how this orange region kind of tightens and pulses, moves over Cuba, and takes basically kind of what the track is doing as far as taking a southwest Florida, even southwest central Florida approach going into the middle of next week. That is our European model. Now let's take a look at another one of our models and see how this is kind of playing out, especially as we get to the middle of next week. And it looks like we're still trying to get some data in there, so I can't even show that one to you. Let me see if I can pull up a different one, because I do like to try to compare the two. All right, so here's another picture that we're painting. You know what, this one's doing the same thing. It looks like we're still getting some of our data in. It is 9:30 in the evening, so this is sometimes still the time period where we're getting a few of our additional models in. So this is the beauty of kind of Facebook Live. You get to kind of go behind the scenes with me and see how I get to forecast every evening, waiting for these models to come in and kind of see the latest. Okay, so here's another view, another one that you've probably been seeing a lot on TV and on social media as well. This is the one we've been watching even before it became a tropical depression, when it was just an area of disorganized thunderstorm activity in the Caribbean. These models, what they do is they're run through several times, but they also give us a really good idea on what they're leaning towards as far as what this system is going to be capable of doing, the direction it's going to be able to move. It doesn't do well with timing, and it doesn't do well with telling us the intensity. So we don't focus on that with these. This just kind of gives us a generalization on what models are picking up as far as what's going to be steering it, what's going to be happening around the environment to help funnel it towards western Cuba, towards that portion of the Caribbean, and eventually towards southeastern Gulf of Mexico. And I've got to tell you, this is one of the tightest group I've seen in the last several runs over the last several days. Typically, even this far out, it would be nice to kind of see maybe one model go here, one go down the middle, one veer off a bit. This is not showing a great deal of uncertainty overall. They're actually getting into more and more agreement, which is really what's leading us to lean even more into the forecast that we have on hand, which is that track that we've been showing you through the National Hurricane Center. So with that being said, again, no need to panic. That's not what we're here for. We're just basically here to give you the latest information, the most detailed information, day by day, hour by hour, especially as we get it and as we get closer to the event, because this is something that is very, very real for a lot of us as far as those potentials are concerned. And you know what? Tropical Depression 9 is not the only thing we've been watching in the tropics. I'll go ahead and give you guys all sigh of relief. It's the only one that's going to be having an immediate impact on the U.S. and the tropics. As mentioned, we have Tropical Storm Hermine in the western Africa here. Tropical Storm Gaston, which is going to stay all the way up here in the north central, northeastern Atlantic. It's over some pretty cool waters as well, so that will weaken actually pretty soon. There's just one area of disturbed weather we've been watching in the tropical central portions of the Atlantic that has a low potential of development. And then here's Fiona. And I do want to touch up a little bit on Fiona because especially if you may have any family members that have been in the far eastern portions of not only the United States, but really eastern Canada, this is easily going to be one of the most powerful storms this region has ever seen. Maybe if you know someone out in Halifax or even closer to those islands back up towards the eastern Canadian countries. I mean, we're talking far eastern Canada, but this is still a 125 mile per hour wind storm. Like those winds are still really busting out very strong conditions. That is still a Cat 3 hurricane, and it is not very often that we see that type of intensity still trying to hold on tightly over some drastically cooler waters. Now it is forecast to actually weaken. Let me take you back here. You can see how it drops off from a 3 to kind of basically going subtropical very, very quickly, but the winds and the rain that's associated with it, I mean, that is just going to be slamming a region that does not deal with that very often. And as mentioned, the two storms that we're not at all going to be really worried about, or maybe even talking about much longer, is Tropical Storm Gaston in the northeastern Atlantic tonight. That's going to be staying well away. And then here's Hermine. This is the one that decided to kind of basically get a race at the name first, and it's going to stay tropical storm status at least through Saturday, then weakening back to a depression Sunday and into early next week, just totally falling apart in the eastern Atlantic. So that's some good news there. We're not even worried about that one at all. But here at home, it's really going to be tropical depression number 9. So I'm actually anxiously waiting the next update. I say anxiously, I'm just curious if we're going to actually see this get upgraded this evening, because we have been seeing a decent amount of convection. Really just a lot of the storms that are bubbling up within this area of low pressure have really been firing up, kind of dwindling down, collapsing, and then doing the whole pattern all over again through the central Gulf, or rather the central Caribbean, I should say. And this area is just going to quickly turn very, very favorable and very conducive for some further activity. So I do want to talk a little bit more about our weekend forecast. First, I want to jump and see if we have any questions here. A lot of times during the Facebook Live, I can see you guys are talking to each other and answering each other's questions and kind of your preparations, what you're doing. You can also see here our digital team. For more information, we do have an article. Like, say you can't always be in front of your app or your television. We have an article where we're basically putting every new update on this system right there on the website. It actually lives on our main page. The link is right here in these comments on if you're watching through Facebook, so you can check that out, and of course we'll be keeping you updated the whole entire time. Alrighty, so that's kind of a view of what's happening with the tropics right now. Let's me talk a little bit about the local weekend, because this weekend is actually going to be just incredible. And I say that to say that, you know, nothing's going to be slowing you down if you need to get some yard work taken care of, if you need to go do some last minute, you know, preparations, just to make sure your kit, your hurricane kit, is all prepared. And if you need to know what to put in there, we have a very, very helpful website. It's over on tentampabay.com/tropics. We have a very helpful website that will walk you through everything you need to know, from little hurricane hacks as far as what you can do to make your home more comfortable leading into any type of tropical disturbance, as well as what to put into your hurricane kit. I picked up some of my non-perishables a few days ago. Of course, I would be living at the station in the event we're talking about impacts, but I would at least have a lot of that with me as well. And here's what your weekend's going to look like. I mean, we're talking about waking up in the mid 70s, both Saturday and Sunday, highs near lower 90s. So it will be a warm one. There's a small chance that we could see an isolated shower pop up, kind of like what we saw today. If anything, I think coverage may be even a little bit less than that. We saw a few decent showers pop up earlier in the afternoon. A lot of that has since fizzled already. So let me take you through Saturday morning. Partly cloudy skies, waking up in the 70s. It's a grand old day, winds out of the east northeast 5 to 10 miles per hour. And you can barely see any little, I'm gonna back it up here. Saturday afternoon, look at this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. You barely have any little blimps of green popping up. So it's going to be about a 10 to 20% chance on Saturday. And then on Sunday, as we go through parts of the afternoon, start to see a little bit of moisture try to pick up through, about a 20% chance once again, and that even continues through parts of Monday. But I think it's really going to be, if we're going to see some better rain chances start to build in, it will be a little bit closer to that Tuesday and then Wednesday time frame. So we're going to continue to stress this weekend to make sure you just have a way to keep updated, keep informed as much as possible on what this depression is doing and what eventually this tropical storm will be doing. We have very helpful articles again online, and we're constantly streaming on our 10 Tampa Bay Plus totally free app that you can download and check out our constant 24-hour streaming. And then again here, as I mentioned, going into Tuesday and Wednesday, that's really going to be the time frame we have to watch out for, and then possibly lingering impacts depending again where in Florida we're going to see this thing go. That will determine how much into Thursday and Friday that some rain chances would be left over. But there's a lot that we still need to sift through, and there's a lot of determining factors that are still going to be playing a factor as we go into early next week. So this is the latest track. Again, if you're just now joining us, this is what we're going to continue to be watching over the next several days. And it really just want to make sure that over the weekend that you know that this is something that will continue to strengthen. This will be something that will reach hurricane status. That is forecast to happen, and we just have to see how quickly not only it will intensify, it'll strengthen, but where on earth in that cone, especially towards the end, where that center will fall. Because if you're talking about landfall up towards the Big Bend, Nature Coast, Tampa Bay, Southwest Florida, or even the Keys, that is all going to play a very different part for different regions, as far as one seeing worse conditions, worse impacts, more of a direct threat, and others getting more fringe impacts, more of the outer bands, more of maybe tropical storm force conditions rather than hurricane force winds. That will all play a grand different factor, and I really, really think we're going to know more about that as far as who's going to be seeing more of what versus the other as we get towards Sunday and Monday. I really think we're going to know more. So that is what we'll be watching for you guys. Don't forget, you can always head on over to 10tampabay.com. We've got you completely covered there from beginning to end, not only before, but also with after the storm. We'll be sure to keep you updated there. All right, I'll go back through and see if there's any questions I didn't get to. After this, I have to log off because we're about to start getting ready for tonight's broadcast. Again, it'll be 11 o'clock, and that's when we're going to get the latest information on Tropical Depression 9 is at 9 o'clock, or at 11 o'clock this evening. So we'll be sure to keep you updated. In the meantime, you guys stay informed, prepared, and connected with us here at 10 Tampa Bay.